Have you ever wondered what truly happens to a man's soul when she walks away? Not just physically, but in the deepest, most intimate sense. Imagine for a moment the weight of silence, the weight of her absence, like the stillness that follows the crash of a wave against jagged rocks. It's not just a body that she leaves behind. It's the very core of him that is shaken, like a soul suspended between two worlds, lost and trying to make sense of the void she has left. In the world of attachment theory, as Jhon Bowlby so astutely observed, we are creatures of connection, dependent on the bonds we form with others. These bonds, however, are not merely superficial ties. They are rooted deep within our unconscious, entwining themselves with our identities and our deepest desires. For a man, this connection, once severed, is not just a rupture in his heart, but a profound collapse of his own ego. He is faced with the unsettling truth that he has attached himself to someone else's sense of self, and in her leaving, he is left questioning his own worth, his own identity. But this is not just about love lost. It's about ego, his ego. When a woman walks away, it's not just her absence that he feels. It's the loss of a mirror. For much of his life, perhaps unknowingly, he has looked to her for validation, for approval. She has been the reflection of his desires, his ambitions, his very sense of being. And in her absence, the mirror shatters. There's no longer someone to reflect him back to himself. And without this reflection, he is lost. The ego, as Jung would say, thrives on projections. These projections are the unconscious parts of us that we can't face, parts of our true selves that we relegate to the shadows. The woman, in this case, has become a projection of everything he needs to see in himself. She becomes the ideal, the embodiment of all his desires. But when she walks away, he is forced to confront the shadows he has avoided, those parts of himself he's never had to acknowledge because she was there to carry them for him. It's in these moments of loss, of silence, that the true emotional chaos begins to unfold. The man finds himself not only fighting the pain of rejection, but also the terrifying realization that his identity has been tied to hers. This moment, this rupture, is the beginning of his descent into the shadow, a confrontation with the fragmented parts of himself that he has long neglected. For Jung, the shadow is that part of the psyche that holds our repressed emotions, desires, and memories. When a woman walks away, her absence throws him into a confrontation with this very shadow, and it is in this dark place that he must face the fragment of himself he's avoided all along. But the man's reaction to this shadow work is not always immediate. At first, it manifests as a kind of emotional turbulence, obsession, regret, anger. His emotions are wild and unanchored because, for the first time, he's left to face the very things he spent his life running from. His need for validation, for approval, has now transformed into an obsession. He will try, in every way possible, to regain her, to recapture the image of himself she once reflected. He might believe that in possessing her once again, he will find himself, reclaim his sense of worth. But the truth is more unsettling than that. The woman's absence is not just a gap in his life. It is a rupture in the very fabric of his identity. His desperation to reclaim her, to pull her back into his world, is not really about love, at least not in the purest sense. It is about ego and the profound loss he feels in no longer having someone to define him. His obsession, his need to control, to win her back, is not a sign of love. It is a manifestation of his deepest insecurities, his failure to confront the shadow of his own soul. In these moments, the man is forced to ask himself, who is he without her? Without the reflection she gave him, who is he really? And in this questioning, there is a deep, unsettling opportunity for growth. The shadow work that begins when a woman walks away can either be the catalyst for his transformation or the very thing that drives him deeper into obsession and fear. It is in these moments of darkness, of grappling with the deepest parts of himself, that he can either awaken to his true self or remain trapped in the need for external validation. The woman, in her wisdom, understands this dynamic even without consciously trying. She knows that the only way for him to truly see himself is by stepping away, by allowing him to confront the parts of himself that have been hidden for so long. It is not about rejection. It is about giving him the space he needs to find himself again. And while he might not understand this at first, in time, he will either rise to meet his own inner truth or remain shackled by his need to possess. For the woman, her absence is not a punishment. It is an invitation for growth. She has created the space for him to confront himself, to become something more than the projection he once relied on. And in this, she holds power, not through control, not through manipulation, but through the simple act of choosing to walk away, allowing him to face his own shadows and ultimately find his own light. As the man grapples with the absence, he starts to feel a deep and unsettling emptiness, a void that seems to swallow him whole. It's not just the loss of a woman, but the loss of the self he had built around her. He is now forced to contend with the truth he had avoided for so long. The woman was never the source of his worth. He was. She was merely a mirror reflecting a version of himself that he was too afraid to confront. This moment of emotional disintegration, though painful, is also the seed of his rebirth. It is through this pain that he must face the shadow, the hidden, repressed aspect of his psyche that have long dictated his thoughts, behaviors, and relationships. The more he fights the emptiness, the deeper it digs into him. His obsession grows, but it is not truly about her. It is about his inability to see his own worth without her presence. He feels that if he can win her back, he can win back the version of himself he once thought she represented. But that is the illusion. The ego's desperate attempt to hold on to something external that will never truly heal the inner wound. The struggle between the man and his shadow is what transforms him. In the absence of the woman, he is faced with two choices: to remain trapped in his obsession, endlessly chasing something that no longer serves him, or to surrender to pain and embark on the most difficult journey of self-discovery, individuation. This is the process by which he must reconcile the parts of himself he has ignored or rejected. The woman, by walking away, has given him the opportunity to face his true self. But it is a painful process. The ego resists it fiercely. At this stage, many men spiral into deeper frustration, addiction, and an ever-deepening sense of inadequacy. The need to regain control, to win her back, becomes all-consuming. It's in this desperation that the man's ego reveals its deepest fears. The fear of being unworthy, the fear of abandonment, the fear of being insignificant. He begins to feel like a shell of the man he once was, as if he is losing himself in her absence. But what he does not realize is that the real journey is not about winning her back. It's about reclaiming the parts of himself that he has lost in the process of seeking her validation. Through this journey of confrontation, he begins to see that the woman's departure is not an act of cruelty, but a gift of freedom, a chance to rediscover who he is outside of the confines of the relationship. For the first time, he must confront his own trauma, his fears, and his sense of self-worth. He begins to understand that she never defined him. He defined himself, but he had to learn to see it. The man's healing begins when he turns inward, when he stops trying to chase the validation he so desperately needs from external sources. The woman's absence creates space for him to rebuild, not by relying on anyone else's perception of him, but by building his own sense of self. This is not a quick or easy process. It takes time, it takes pain, and it takes an unwavering commitment to facing the shadow that has shaped him for so long. In time, he realizes that his obsession was never truly about her. It was about his own disconnection from his own soul, from his own inner truth. The woman who left him was never the cause of his emotional chaos. She was merely the catalyst that forced him to face the chaos within himself. In her absence, he must rebuild from the ground up. He must learn to stand alone, to embrace his own power, and to find his worth not in the reflection of others, but in the stillness within. As the man confronts his deepest fears, he begins to shift. He stops looking outside himself for validation and starts looking within. The ego that was once fragile and dependent on external approval starts to strengthen, becoming more resilient and self-sufficient. He learns to let go of the need to control, to possess, and to constantly chase after approval. The woman's absence has done its work, and he begins to emerge in the fog of his obsession. For the woman, this process is not something she can force. She does not need to fix him, and she does not need to wait for him to heal. Her power lies in her ability to walk away, to create space for him to find his own way. The true strength of the feminine ego is not in holding on, but in allowing others to step into their own power, in trusting that they have the strength to heal themselves. The man, now on the path of self-realization, understands that he is not defined by anyone else. He is whole on his own, and the woman who left him was simply a reflection of his own journey. He does not need to possess her, to chase her, or to win her back. He simply needs to choose himself. In this moment of transformation, the man is no longer chained to his past, no longer relying on anyone else for his sense of worth. He is free, free to be himself, free to heal, and free to move forward without the weight of the egoic need to control or possess. The woman, in her wisdom, has provided him with the ultimate gift, the gift of self-realization. She has walked away not to punish him, but to allow him to find his own way. And in this freedom, he finds